Good morning, afternoon, or evening from whichever time zone you're joining us today. My name is Rebecca Cronin, and I'm one of the Customer Success Managers here with the Altair Data Analytics team. Now, some of you might recognize my voice from participating in onboarding sessions, or perhaps seeing my name within the user community. The Customer Success team is another point of contact for you to reach out at any time with any questions or concerns you may have regarding Altair solutions, as well as if you're unable to get a hold of your account manager. If you're also not a member of our online community, I encourage you to do so and join and participate. If you have trouble connecting, again, the Customer Success team will happily get you connected, as well as to the Altair One platform. We're excited that you're joining us here today for our Data Analytics Ask the Expert Monarch webinar series. Our goal is to give you this one open time slot where you can truly drop in, ask any questions, concerns you may have after we present our starting topic. The topic was voted upon your peers from the previous session. So a little housekeeping. On the right side, you should have a control panel. You'll see a handout section. It is a copy of today's PowerPoint, so you can get a copy of this. Within that PowerPoint has some helpful web links for the various resources for further enablement. In that same control panel, you should see a question section where you could submit your question regarding any topic concern you have. And again, it does not have to be about our topic for today. Anything Monarch, desktop, or server related. And if we don't get a chance to get to your question, we will follow up through support ticket or directly. For those that do submit a question, just be aware we're going to share this publicly with everyone in attendance. If it's something you want to be addressed offline in private, then please add that comment so we don't share it. So now I'd like to introduce you to our expert for today. It's Steve Caiels. He's one of our senior professional service consultants. He's worked for over 29 years in various technical support roles, which encompass not just the Altair, but our former DataWatch as well. Steve has started off as a technical support engineer, promoted to our pre-sales consultant and training specialist for all of EMEA, and now into a senior role of professional service consultant. You may have had the pleasure of working with him directly or perhaps seen him participate in our community. So for our topic today, we're going to cover what's new in Monarch version 2025, both the desktop and server. There was a pre-registered question that we'll also be covering as well. So with no further ado, let me make Steve our presenter for today.
Thanks, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Okay, what's new in 2025? So I guess the first thing to point out is where you can go and get the very latest news on the releases, and also if you wanted to review what was new in 2024 or 2023, any of those previous upgrades, you'll be able to find all that information as well. So there's lots of different ways of getting there, but I think the easiest way is to just go to altair.com. And from here, you'll be able to go to resources and documentation. And this is all of the Altair products. So there are, I don't know, tens of thousands, well, maybe not 5,000 different documents here. Obviously, you can use this filter to get into the stuff that you want. So just type in Monarch. And then you'll see there's different selections for the desktop products. So this is Monarch Complete. So this would include Monarch Classic and Data Prep Studio. And then Monarch Server, and this would include all of the versions of Monarch Server. So the Automator product that we tend to talk about more on these sessions, but also the content, the report warehouse, and the RMS mining servers that we have available. They're all based on the same technology and share a fair bit of the same documentation, but there will be sort of specialist documentation for each of those as well. So even when you select Monarch and we select the two products, you'll see there's still 285 documents here because it goes back over all the old versions. So out of those 285, 53 relate to the latest version. And specifically, if you're looking for the release notes, you can see it's categorized here. We can just look at the release notes. And you'll typically see anywhere between 2 and 4 documents, depending on where we are on the release cycle. And they're broken down into 2 different categories. We have a specific version for release notes. So this relates specifically to 2025.0. If we do have a 2025.1 release at any stage, there'll be a separate release note just for that version. And then there'll be the release history, which will be a combined document showing all of the various different releases. So at the moment, these 2 actually have the same content. And they relate to Monarch. Usually, if you don't see the word server, then it's relating to Monarch Desktop, so Monarch Complete and Data Prep Studio. And they're available in PDF and HTML. They default to the PDF version. So you can see with Classic, there doesn't tend to be a whole load of new features added to Classic. The new features tend to get added to Data Prep Studio. There will be bug improvements. It is still a live product. We are still developing it. So there'll be enhancements, readability enhancements. If there's any issues with rendering on sort of unusual resolutions, all those sorts of things will be incorporated. And you can see, sometimes there are enhancements as well. So updated Tableau support for Classic. For this particular version of Data Prep Studio, a lot of the enhancements are in terms of improving or aligning the underlying technology with the server product more. So for those of you that have been using Monarch or the server products, Automator typically, for many years, you'll know that historically there's been sometimes quite a large gap between releasing the desktop product, Monarch, and the server product. It can be several months between those 2 releases. What we're trying to do is to bring that time frame down. And in fact, the 2025 release, I think, was on the same day or within a couple of days. So there's been quite a lot of work behind the scenes to align the 2 engines and make it easier to release these at the same time, which, of course, will make it easier for you to upgrade. So with Data Prep Studio, again, there's quite a few different enhancements. I won't go through these, obviously, one by one. Quite a few of them are very specific, Snowflake connector enhancements, UI changes, and then we'll come down to some actual product enhancements that we can go through on the software itself. So this resource is great, not only for the release notes, but also we've got product tutorials here. We've got installation guides here. As you can see, everything that you would get if you installed the product, you're able to come into the documentation. I don't believe you have to be registered for this particular screen, so I'm not actually signed in here. So you should be able to do the same thing and navigate and see the same results that I'm seeing here. I apologize if I'm wrong on that, but if you do need to log on, you can create a free account to see this anyway. So let's have a look at the products, and I can show you a couple of the different changes in here. Let's come into Data Prep Studio first of all. Just trying to tidy up the screen a little bit. Okay. So yeah, not a huge amount to show in the desktop product. As I say, there's a lot of alignments gone on behind the scenes, but a couple of things I wanted to review, and also it's a place where one of the enhancements has come in, is in the PDF engine. So this PDF is actually been sort of manually edited to have some bad alignment in it. If I just open it up in a browser, you can see that these fields are jumping around. So those of you that have used Monarch with PDFs, hopefully you won't see this alignment issue too much, but you may be aware that sometimes the fields, even though they look great in a PDF engine, or in a browser or in Acrobat Reader, they don't always line up in exactly the same way once you get them into Monarch. And that's because the white spacing is different, and the fonts, you can have proportional fonts, and Monarch requires a fixed width font. So this one's actually sort of manually been forced to badly align, but it's typical of the sorts of things you can see, even though you might not see this sort of misalignment when you open it up in Acrobat and the browser. But let's drag this into Data Prep Studio to start instead of the browser, obviously. So the mode I wanted to go through here, and there's an enhancement to this mode, a small enhancement to this mode. The expert mode came in the previous version, 2024, and it gives us much more control over being able to align fields. And you can see the issue we've got here is if we're trying to be able to highlight all of these fields, because these fields are drifting around, we're not able to do a nice neat highlight. If I try and grab the unit price, you can see in order to grab all of the unit prices, the column needs to be this wide because of these two fields that are drifting. And that causes it to bump into the field alongside it. So there's no easy way, well, there's no way at all to individually highlight the unit price and the amount fields because we can't have overlapping fields in Monarch. We could possibly get around it by highlighting both these fields together and then splitting them. That would certainly be a solution, or even all these three fields together and splitting them. That becomes a little bit more tricky because these fields have spaces and, okay, well, we can take, the amount would always be the last field, the unit price would be the second field, and then everything after that would be the label number. So that would be a way around it, but it's better if we don't have to do those sorts of things and we can extract it more neatly. So before the advanced mode came along, the expert mode, sorry, came along, we had this snap text left, and that will sometimes fix the problems for us. You can see, I think it's going to fix this issue here on the quantity for us. It gives us a warning about the performance. It is a lot slower, significantly slower, but it fixes the quantity, but you can see it doesn't fix the unit price and the amounts. To be honest, it would have more chance of fixing this if this wasn't a doctored PDF. But here it's not able to do it because the PDF itself is forced to be badly aligned. But even with that, we can get around it using the expert mode. So the expert mode is not new, but there is this undo and redo, which can make life a little bit easier, which is a small enhancement. But I think it's worth reviewing the expert mode because it is a relatively new feature. So I'm just going to cancel that actually and bring that in again. Sorry. Let's go into document options. So this is the simple mode that we get first of all. When you go into expert mode, the first thing it does is basically runs the auto adjust for you, and you can see that it actually put in a load of different breaks for us, which weren't perfect. The auto adjust is quite often giving us a good starting place, but it usually needs, or in many cases, will need adjusting. So we're going to the expert mode, and you can see what it's done here is it's aligned the media. It's fixed the quantity, even though it hasn't got an alignment marker on it. The description is okay. The label number is okay, but it's still not been able to do the unit price. So it's actually fixed these first four columns that didn't really need fixing too much anyway, and it's not fixed the unit price. So to be honest, what I tend to do is to clear the auto adjust. It's up to you, obviously, whether you wanted to modify the existing ones or clear everything. But I'm just going to clear all because then it gives us a chance to really explore what the auto adjust is doing. And what we usually would want to do is to just work our way across these fields, working out where we want to snap the alignment. Well, the media is okay, don't need to put an alignment in there. The quantity is okay, the description is okay. The label number does need adjusting. You can see it's still drifting around a little bit. So usually the way to get the best results is you pick where you want the label number to be, and this seems like a sensible place to snap it to. You can see a majority of them are already snapped there, and the ones that aren't, we want to snap into that position. So you choose your column and just do a normal single click on the canvas, and then you can add either a left or a right adjustment depending on which way you want to snap it. So I want this to be left aligned, so I'm going to add a left alignment. And you can see now it snaps all of these fields into the right place, and the little red highlight is just telling us which fields are affected by this alignment control. Job done on the label number. Similarly for the unit price, well, I want my unit prices to be right aligned, and this seems to be a good place to align them. So again, I'm going to do a normal click and then add a right adjustment. And notice actually if I delete that one, it's pretty good. It works well. So this is where they're going to snap. So even though this amount is closer to this, you might imagine it's going to snap the amount back to the unit price. Well, it knows because of the layout that these are shifted forward, and it will compensate for that. So even though we think it's getting a little bit tight there, when I do the right align, it will snap the 899 into the correct place. Similarly for the amount, snap the amount into the correct place. So these are the only 3 alignment codes that we want here. I'm just getting that out of the way. Having said that, as I mentioned, this isn't actually a new version for 2025. This did come in, I think it was in 2024.1. So if you have 2024.0, you may not have this expert mode. I would need to look at the release notes to confirm that. But so just have a look for the latest release. If you don't have this expert mode, you can either upgrade to 2025 or I believe 2024.1. The bit that is new is actually the undo and the redo. And it seems fairly insignificant, but actually it can be really useful. And it's a multi-stage, so you can see if I put an alignment in here by mistake, if I'm just clicking all over the place, I can undo those 2 stages and I can redo them if I want to. So it's a multi-stage undo and redo on there. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to quickly recap the expert engine, which is a relatively new feature. I'm just going to keep an eye on chat and see if there's any questions coming in. I don't see anything at the moment. Okay. So I'm not going to do anything on the extraction on here because there's nothing new relating to this particular data. So I'm just going to cancel this and come back into a different workspace to show the other feature. So again, nothing special on this workspace. It's actually based on the same data. We've got a few fields here. One of the other enhancements is the ability to multi-select columns and then use those functions on like a column, a field list effectively, instead of a single column at a time. So previously, if I wanted to perform, let's say, a split operation, you could only select 1 field at a time. So if I wanted to split, maybe the description makes more sense. If I wanted to split the description based on this comma, I would have done a right-click, split into parts from the left or the right, whatever's relevant. Let's go from the left, and it will give me this split delimiter. This looks exactly the same in the previous versions. So nothing different if you select a single column. But what we can now do is to select multiple columns. And although there is no split, it doesn't make sense to do the same operation on these anyway. You'll see that that's not really the point of this functionality. So if I select multiple columns, it can be any columns, and now do a right-click split. Previously, this option would not have been available. You could only select the split on a single column. But I can now do a split into the parts from the left. And because it's based on a multiple column selection, I get this additional ability to manage the columns that it's going to apply it to. Now, I can still only apply this split to a single column at a time, so it doesn't perform the function on multiple columns. And I must admit, when I first saw it, I thought, well, yeah, it's nice to be able to see it this way, but it doesn't really give us a big advantage. But the real advantage is if you have a very wide table. So let's say I've got 100 columns or 1,000 columns wide. It doesn't really matter. Data Prep Studio is very happy with extremely wide data columns. Previously, I would have had to have navigated my way left and right to find that particular column before I could have done the right-click split. Now what I can do is just choose any old 2 columns. We don't really care what they are, and then come down to Manage Columns. And now I can deselect the ones that I randomly selected just to get into the function. And now I can filter. So let's say it's the part number that I want to select. I can now filter the part number and apply that. So now, without having to navigate left and right and find it, I'll be able to choose it in that managed column list and obviously perform any of the split functions. Not just the split, of course, a lot of the other functionality, extracting, I think some of the replace options, those all work in a very similar way. So it's this managed columns really that is the new bit that allows you to very quickly navigate and find the particular column you want to work with. Okay, let me move on to one of the other updates in. So there's another one that I'm going to I'll recap when we look at the pre-reg question on the drill up and drill down, the outline mode. So I'll pop into to Monarch server now, where there's a couple of enhancements. Let me close down Data Prep Studio. So again, this is 2025.0. There is actually a 0.0 behind that as well. So it's 2025.0.0. The very latest version is 2025.0.1. The documentation has not been released for that yet, but it only has one very specific fix in it, which I'll mention when we get to that relevant stage. So I'm just going to log in. So there are lots of background issues, as I mentioned, in terms of for us, for Altair, or Siemens, I guess I should say now. It means that we can release Monarch Automator and the desktop product as a much tighter cycle, which means upgrades are easier for everybody that's using both of those products as well. But it also means that we can run the latest vulnerability scans against it, or updated scans against it. So obviously that makes a more secure product for everybody as well. So it's not just the user interface and the features that are a good reason for updating, but also means that you'll get later Vericode, OWASP, and Web Inspect vulnerability scans. You can use newer versions of technology such as local DB or the Visual C++ runtimes. So obviously everything moves forward. It's a constantly changing game, and it enables us to use the sort of the more robust and up-to-date versions of all these controls. In terms of user functionality, things that actually make a difference to us as an end user, there's a nice enhancement to the reporting. So I'm just going to go into the system reports here, security, for example. I'll do an audit entry. There'll be more audit entries. So all of this looks the same. We can look at audit entries for the last 365 days, for example. And I'm just going to quickly change views to show us what we used to get. And I probably shouldn't have done that with such a big selection. It might I might have to abort this and come back to it. But I should have done this on a smaller report to start with. But so this wasn't genuinely done to sort of stress the benefit of updating, but I think it's going to take maybe a minute or two to generate that report, but I don't believe I can abort it. So basically what we had in the previous versions were these these text-based reports, and it needs to render the entire report, and it gives it to us as effectively a text-based preview. We can export it to Excel or export it to PDF, which of course you can then import back into Data Prep Studio or whatever you wanted to do in order to analyze that. But the report we're going to see eventually is a text-based report. Now I need to make the decision as to whether I'm going to abort this. I don't think I can escape it. I can possibly end the session, but I think I might need to restart the services. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of time. Let me see if I can log in as a different user. No, it's not going to let me. I thought it was timing out because of the browser was. Okay, it's done. Right, okay, so apologies for that, my mistake. So this is eventually, as you can see, in quite a long time, has taken us to a text-based report. So there's nothing much we can do here to this report. We can export it, as I mentioned, we can export it to PDF, or we can export the raw data to CSV. This would be a little bit difficult to use in CSV because of the nature of the layout, but we can export it, and we can then of course analyze it in a tool of our choice. What we get in the latest version is most of these reports now, I think all of these reports now are available as a grid view. The grid view is pretty much instantaneous. So if I actually come back to here and put in, just so you know it's not cached, I'll use a random number that's not been used before, 375. We saw how long that took getting to the text view. If I leave it in the grid view, you can see it's effectively instantaneous. So there's a huge performance improvement in getting the data available to us to start with. But it also means we can mess around with this grid. We have a lot of control over this grid. So, for example, the default action is to sort it by date time. If I want it sorted by user, there are already a few users in here, but if I reverse sort it by user, you can see there's a Monarch user, there's an ATE user, which are scattered amongst the several thousand, almost 2,000 items. So we can sort it by any column. We can filter by any column. So just users that start with an A, for example. And now you can see instead of the admin ATE and what was, oh, okay, so I've just got user, just rid of the user called Monarch. Sorry, maybe I should have done a filter starts with M. So there's only going to be one user there. My mouse is going crazy. Okay, so you can see now we've just got the 5 items that belong to the Monarch user, and of course you can export this to Excel or to PDF as well. So much quicker to do that. So there's this grid control has been added to pretty much all of the transaction reports. It was previously available in some of the configuration reports, but it's now being globally rolled out to all these transaction reports as well. The next enhancement, again, doesn't take very long to show, but this one I think is possibly more significant and more impactful, and will hopefully make life a little bit easier for you if you've come across this particular situation that I'm just about to show. So this is a standard visual process. It's set up to fail, basically. What these are doing is these, as you can see, there are 5 consecutive exports. They're all exporting to an Excel file, which is not great. We're going to get contention. But you can imagine, even if this was a more sort of traditional type process where you might be doing a bit more work here and exporting it to something like Access or Excel and then doing other things, you might have a process that would run quite a few times, but then if it happens to try and export the data at the wrong time, you can get contention, and the export will seemingly randomly fail. But it's failing when 2 of these exports happen to run at the same time. So if we run this as a single process, this will be great because it'll open up the file, it'll export it the first time, and it will wait, it'll daisy chain all of these. But if I trigger this multiple times, so let's imagine you've got the situation where this is a monitored task or a scheduled task, and the frequency of the triggers, so the incoming files or the cadence of the schedule, is shorter than the amount of time the job will take to run. So maybe it only takes 2 minutes to run on a weekend or on a weekday, but it takes 3 hours to run on a Friday because there's lots more data. To save you having to manage that, there's a new feature that will stop it running in parallel. So you can see if I try and run this 3 times, just clicking on the run button, so simulating the fact that it's running multiple times, either the cadence is too short or the trigger, the arrival of the file has made it run too many times, you'll see that the one that's actually worked, this is a UK time, of course, the one that's actually worked is still running. It takes about 30 seconds, I think, to actually do all those parallel exports. But all the ones where it's clashed, we've got this some items completed with errors. So here it's fairly obvious that there's a problem, and I think we'd be able to work out exactly what was going on. But if you only see this very rarely when there happens to be a clash, and you're seeing these sort of messages that seem random, but in reality they're not random, where a process can't access a file. In this case, it's the file that's it's being exported to. It could be the input file. We see the same things on the input file. It's because we got contention there and the process is running at the same time. And it's quite difficult to manage if you don't have no control over the incoming files. So there's a new feature, very quick and easy to use. I just want to make sure all my jobs have finished running first. Yep, everything's finished. Let's just delete those to keep it tidy. And we go into the process and up into the settings, And there is a new setting here to, by default, this is the new setting, allow multiple instances to run in parallel. By default, it's ticked, it's enabled, because of course we didn't want to suddenly disable this on all of your processes. So it will be enabled by default. But if you now remove that tick, you'll see when I run this process to start with, the first one will run okay. And if I now click on the second one, while that first process is still running, you'll see I'll get this new warning. So the parallel running, the name of the process, another instance of the process is still running. So I'm not able to run this a second time while that first process is active. This will also override a trigger or a schedule. So if this was scheduled to run every minute and it took 5 minutes to run, it's going to run the first one. It will try and run it according to the schedule another 4 times, but the engine won't let that process run. So you wouldn't see a failure. So you sort of noticed I tried to run that twice. I'm not seeing the error in the job log where I tried to run it. The job never actually ran in the first place. So I won't see any errors. I won't see any alerts. I won't get any emails telling me that a process has failed. It just simply won't let me run. You see now this one is completed. I will, of course, now be able to run this again. So I can run it one more time, again, run it again, is going to fail. So there's the second one running there. So quite a small option there, just that tick box. But I think there was one particular customer where that was having a lot of problems with jobs that varied a great deal in duration. They wanted a high cadence. They wanted to run this job, I think, every 20 minutes or something. But occasionally the job would take too long to run, and they were having to manage these errors manually. So it seemed like a good idea to add that, and hopefully that will be a benefit, to the wider audience as well. Okay, and to be honest, that ends the what's new in 2025. So, say a lot of the things are happening behind the scenes. There are these sort of, in my view, fairly significant parallel processing. There are other enhancements. Some of you, if you're using scripting a lot, for example, or you're using the failure node, if you have a distribution in the process, or if you've used the advanced features in a process, you have these failure nodes. So if the process is good, it goes on to the next sort of grey line. If it fails, then it will follow the red line. There was some sort of behavior where if you had multiple red lines connecting to the same failure node, it would sometimes get triggered. And it depended on a lot of other things going on as well in the background. But the logic on the failure nodes has been improved as well. So there's lots of things going on behind the scenes, but those are the main sort of forward-facing type issues. Let me see if there's any questions. I don't see anything at the moment.
Steve, there's one that came in.
Yeah.
Because if the trigger is drop file location and there are multiple files to process, will it just wait and process once it finishes its current run?
It depends on how the process is set up. So if multiple files, so that there's a polling interval that's set up in the configurator. So this default polling instance on the dispatcher host, I think, is a default of 10 seconds. So basically what will happen is the files will keep on going in there, and then at the 10-second interval, it will poll that folder, and it will then take whatever's available at that time. And depending on how you're processing the exports, where is it? Depending on how you're processing, if you've got a hub, the default action is to process everything together. So if at that 10-second interval you've got 10 files in there, they'll all get lumped in together into effectively a single source, and it will treat it as though it's one big file. If you've got it set to export, or if you've got it set to either of these two individual ones, it will basically run the job 10 times. But in that case, it will manage the concurrency, because it's not like this situation here where we've got 5 things trying to happen at the same time. It's actually a single job that it would run 5 times in a row. So It would still manage it correctly if you're using multiple file inputs. But where it would go wrong is, let's say the interval is triggered and you scrape up your 10 files and you get that job running. If over the next few seconds you've got another 10 files come in there, the next 10-second intervals, it'll scrape those up again, and then it will try and run a second instance of that process. So you get two sort of conflicting instances of the same job running. That's where you'd run into a problem. So if the job only runs once, or it runs multiple times, but it's managed by this this hub, it'll be okay. It's where the job gets triggered twice, either because it's gone through two polling intervals, or because the scheduling has triggered the next job before the previous one is finished. So I hope that makes sense. That's where you would want to be using this this option to disallow parallel processing. This disallowing this would not stop multiple input files running at the same time. It's only separate, completely separate instances of the process that it impacts. So hopefully that answers that question. There was a question that came in before that about the resources that explain the difference between classic and DPS. I think probably the best way to find that would be in the resources, the same place I showed earlier, resources documentation. So I don't think there's a sort of a fact sheet, because the products are quite different. There is an overlap, and they do a similar job in terms of extracting data from text and PDF report files. But in pretty much every other way, they are quite different products. So I think the best place to get the overview of those is to have a look at the tutorials, and you'll see here you have the learning guides, multi-language learning guides. These will cover both products. So you'll see different chapters for Classic and for Data Prep Studio. And this is probably the best place to learn about the differences. Okay, I think that's the only two questions I can see. So let me come on to the pre-registered question, which was using the outline, which is a desktop question. I must have closed it down at some stage, so it'll just take a second or two to reload. So the outline is actually an Excel feature that allows you to drill up and down through various different levels of data. So again, I can use that same workspace. So those of you that are familiar with Monarch, either the desktop product or Data Prep Studio, will know that you can have a summary that allows you to collapse and expand all these various different levels. And the key to getting the outline in Excel is that you must be using a summary. So this workspace does not have a summary, which is done through the Analyze tab in this product, and it's a separate summary window in Classic. So we're not able to get the outline as we stand at the moment. So if I try and export here, the load plan you can see is called Classic, by the way. So if I try and export from the Classic load plan, you can see I can only export the table or the report. Now I can export to Excel, but there's no option here to select a summary because we don't have one yet. And in the advanced feature, I don't have the outline. So there's a feature here that you may be looking for called add outline or drill up and drill down. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but we'll see that in a moment or two. But I just wanted to quickly, before we go on to that, show that there is a pivot table. So it may be that the functions of a pivot table will negate the need for the outline and may give you some extra flexibility. So from a table, you can go into the Advanced tab, you can select the pivot table, and then you can select whatever you like here. So I'm going to have my customer drilling down into document number, and then we'll sum up the media. You can change the name of it and all that sort of thing in here, but I won't do that. So we'll just export this option to start with. Let me change the path. We'll put it there. Export. Okay. I don't have Excel. I'm using a virtual machine here, so I just need to copy it to my local machine and open it up locally. So this is the file I've just exported. You see, we don't have the outline. So the outline is like a little drill up and drill down index thing you get just before the first column of data. But I do now have this pivot table. So the pivot table is a standard Excel table. So this effectively gives you the same functionality as the drill up and drill down in the outline. So I wanted to mention that because this may actually be preferable to the outline anyway. And because it's an Excel pivot table, you've got all the normal functionality here. So if I decide I want to include my media, let's have my media type as a third row, for example, then I've got drill up and drill down at various different levels. Very similar functionality to what you'd see in an outline, but it doesn't answer the question of how do you enable outline specifically. So let me close this one down. So if you want to see a genuine outline, what you need to do is to create a summary. So that's either going through the Analyze tab in Data Prep Studio or the summary window in Classic. And we need to build a summary. And then effectively the same that I did for the pivot table. We'll have the customer as a row, and the document number as a row, maybe the media type as a row, and then the amount as a measure. Now you're only going to see the outlines for the subtotals that you have in there. So by default, we have a total line. So if I export this, I'm only going to be able to drill up and down through either the entire summary or all the way down to just a total line. If I want to get up and down through the levels like we saw in that pivot table, I've also got to come into the summary and in the layout, insert a subtotal. And same for the document number, in the layout, insert a subtotal. So this now gives us the subtotals that will form the levels of our outline. So you see we've got order number subtotals, we've got customer number subtotals on this line. When we export it, there's a little gotcha in here that I must admit caught me out quite a few times. So there's two things we have to do when we're exporting it. This is the old export, don't forget. This is the export that's got the pivot table in here. So this is exporting from the table directly. So we're not going to be able to see the drop down here still. But if I do a new export, because I've now built an Analyze tab belonging to this table, I can now export the summary to Excel. And it defaults to the general. It's only because I've moved off it. Now, the one that I must admit caught me out a little while because I couldn't work out why I still couldn't see my outlines is even though we've told it to export the summary, it defaults to no summary because you can have multiple summaries and it doesn't guess which summary you might want to export. So the one I kept on forgetting to do was to change this summary. Now I didn't rename my summary, so it's just called summary, but in the Analyze tab I probably should have given it a more sensible name than that. But you must make sure you change the summary to the name of your summary. And now because we're exporting the summary, we no longer get the pivot table capability, but we do get the outline to drill up and drill down option. So if I now export this one, and copy it to my local machine. This is the outline. So this is an Excel feature which the Monarch export enables. So you see it's sort of quite similar in a way. To me, it's maybe a little bit of a disadvantage in that it doesn't automatically do the subtotals. I guess you could say it does because Monarch has actually put them in there, but effectively it's the same thing. It allows us to individually collapse and expand customers and order numbers, or we can select the quick select at the top. So level 4 is the bottom level, you see everything. Level 1, of course, is the top level where you just see the grand total. And then we've got the customer level and the order number level in between those two. So this is the outline. The two key things are, if I can find Monarch again. Oh, I've gone onto my local machine, haven't I? Sorry. So the two key things are you must build a summary in the Analyze tab. And once you've built that summary, when you're exporting it, you must select summary here and make sure you then choose the particular name of the summary that you want. After that, you will have this option to include the outline. Okay. I think that brings me to the end of what I have to cover. I don't see any more questions. So yeah, please feel free. Yep, go ahead. Sorry.
Another question. Yeah, it goes. Well, first, thank you for the session. They find it very helpful. The two questions they have was automator scripts that are written in VB.NET, which is no longer a very common language. Do you know if there are any plans to change the language for automator scripts?
I've heard mention of Python being incorporated at some stage. I'm not sure whether I was allowed to say that or not, so apologies if I wasn't. But I think Python has been discussed. It's not imminent. It's certainly it's not going to be in a 2025.1 update or anything like that, as far as I'm aware. But there are no immediate plans. But I know it is something that's been discussed.
Okay, and then there was a part 2. Is there any plans for adding support for opening multiple XLSX files at the time, like the worksheet mode, like we do with PDF files? Right.
Again, it's not something I heard of. I understand the problem. Obviously, I think it would be difficult with the current architecture. It uses a different engine to open up the database files. So multiple CSVs with Automator, you can open up multiple CSV files, not multiple Excel files. I think the now having said that, I think you might be able to. I'm just sort of reviewing. I should probably confirm this, and we can maybe recap it at the beginning of the next session. But I believe what you need to do is on the database inputs, you do have to browse to a specific file here. I'm not sure whether I've even got an Excel file that I can get to easily. Yeah, we do. So you have to browse to a specific file here in order to select the table name. This is now trying to read the table names from that specific file. So this is something that we can test and come back to you. I'm sure Rebecca will have your contact details, whoever's asked this question, or feel free to try it yourself. And I believe it will work, but we'll confirm it. Once you've gone through the process choosing an individual Excel file, you can come back in here and change this to a wildcard. And I believe that will work. So if that doesn't answer the question, then certainly come back to us with exactly what it is you're trying to do. You'll see now I no longer have the ability to come down and select the table name. So you need to make sure you fill in all this table name and do all the other things first on a single file. Then I believe you'll be able to come back in here and select a wildcard afterwards. Let us know if that doesn't answer your question, and we'll look into it in more detail.
Well, while we have...
Yeah, so I was just going to say, if any of my colleagues are on the chat and can confirm or deny that, then I'll relay that information as well.
That's a great question. We can submit to product management to get the official answer. So we'll have something for our September 17th, but we'll try to get an answer soon if we can. Steve, so before we lose the folks, our great crowd, I'm going to launch the poll question. So for those, you may have had your screen at full mode viewing capacity. You'll need to minimize your screen in order to select our future topic for September. So would you like to review analyze versus group transformation, pros, cons? Would you like to review distributions and naming macros within Monarch Server? perhaps an overview of classic mode, the interface and functionality. And if you select other, obviously it won't be for September, but we can grab your topic idea and add it for our September poll. So when the session ends, we do have a closing survey. Go ahead and enter your comment feedback, and you don't even have to vote for that, but put in the comment feedback and vote for one of the other 3 topics. So I see about halfway there, so you'll have to select the most important topic you want to view. By the way, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just while people are doing that, that there is a difference potentially between using database mode. So you may be aware in Excel or in Data Prep Studio, you can open Excel files in database mode or in worksheet mode, worksheet design mode. There may be a difference there depending on how you're opening up that file as well. So certainly we'll look into that.
A little more than halfway voted. Again, this is your opportunity to select the topic you'd like to review and deeper dive. And we do appreciate when the session ends in the closing survey, let us know how we're doing, what we can do to improve. Okay, we're about 3/4 of the way. So those who haven't voted, please do so. All right, we'll do a countdown as we've done before. So I'm going to count down and please get that last vote in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it looks like folks would like to have a review of the classic mode interface. Quite popular, so that will be our September 17th topic. In fact, let me grab slides. So if there's any other questions, folks, you still have time to pop them in the chat there. I'm going to make myself presenter real quick. So again, that handout section, if you haven't done so, if you download, you'll receive a copy. These, by the way, are the updated links to our support, to our community, to that documentation that Steve mentioned. Our e-learning platform, I believe it's also being updated. So if anyone has taken the certification, I believe there's an alert to make sure you download your certification so you get a copy of that. Our YouTube channel, a copy of this. So if you have colleagues you find that this session was interesting, you can always guide them to search in the community for Ask the Expert, or in the YouTube channel we have an Ask the Expert where we'll put this recording online to play back. How to get a hold of support, either through the online community, or you may email them or call in directly. And here's your community link. You would say case management, and you'll have the option to open a new ticket. Again, the community to search for content. And I'm just going to go through this part really quickly. And that's our e-learning platform. Again, I believe they're being merged and worked on consolidation, so just double check on those certificates. And if the organization hasn't received a complimentary onboarding, that is an opportunity for the team to select and schedule. And so as mentioned, our next session will be in September. We're going to have the summer off, so you have the summer off as well. We'll look forward to connecting with you all back on September 16th. I will try to get that registration page done and ready by July 7th, so you can pre-register for those sessions. We'll also send out an email invitation to let you know it's up and ready. And we have 4 minutes to spare, so I don't know if there was any last minute questions. or Steve, any other comments that you want to mention?
No, I'm good. If there's any other questions, feel free.
Well, we're going to cover Classic, but just the FYI, the management, I should say product management, is looking to focus on DPS. There won't be any new feature enhancements, obviously just bug fixes continuation, but any development will then move forward and continue with Data Prep Studio. Obviously, there is still a need for those who may have our Monarch Server Report Warehouse or RMS solution that does still only use and work with classic models. As you may or may not be aware of, right? We could always take classic models and bring them into Data Prep Studio, but at this time we cannot take a workspace and go into classic. So I know some organizations might start with a classic model and bring it in to do the data transformation. So those are always an option. But that's all I have. Well, everyone have a wonderful summer. Steve, thank you so much for sharing. And like I said, we'll try to get this recording updated and loaded to both the community and to that YouTube channel.
Thanks, everyone.
And thank you. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a great summer. Bye-bye.